Hey everyone, I'm Kundan Yashputra, and welcome back to NextGen Now today. We're diving into a gripping story shaking the foundations of the US job market. Imagine waking up to news that thousands, maybe millions of jobs could vanish, all tied to global tariffs, economic shifts, and a storm of uncertainty. What's driving this fear of massive layoffs? How could President Trump's trade policies ripple through companies and communities? And what does this mean for workers like you and me? Buckle up, because we're unraveling the intriguing details of potential massive layoffs in the USA. Let's get started. Let's step back to the heart of this drama. On June 4, 2025, experts sounded the alarm. American companies might soon slash jobs in droves if President Donald Trump's global tariffs don't deliver the wins they're aiming for. The fear is real, and it's tied to a web of economic signals flashing warning lights. Just this week, payroll firm ADP dropped a bombshell. U.S. private sector hiring in May 2025 slowed to its weakest pace since 2023, adding only 37,000 jobs compared to 60,000 in April. That's a sharp drop, and it's got analysts on edge. AFP reported this slowdown, and it's a clue that something bigger might be brewing. Now, let's break this down. President Trump, who took office for his second term in January 2025, has doubled down on an aggressive trade policy. He's rolled out a baseline 10% tariff on all imports, with 25% tariffs targeting Canada and Mexico, and a whopping 145% on Chinese goods, as Al Jazeera noted on May 2, 2025. The goal? Shrink the trade deficit and boost U.S. manufacturing. But here's the twist. Tariffs are like a double-edged sword. They might protect some jobs, but they can also spike costs for companies relying on imported materials. Think steel, car parts, or lumber. When costs climb, businesses face a tough call: absorb the hit or cut staff to stay afloat. Carl Weinberg, chief economist at High Frequency Economics, told AFP on June 4, 2025, this may be the tip of an iceberg, but it could also be a false start. He's warning that as tariffs clarify, companies might get aggressive, trimming workforces to dodge cost hikes. Let's zoom in on May 2025. The ADP report revealed a mixed bag. Goods-producing industries like mining and manufacturing took a hit, losing jobs last month. Diane Swonk, KPMG's chief economist, flagged this in a recent note, saying, manufacturing employment is suffering from higher input costs and disruptions to supply chains. She even pointed out a vehicle producer idling production in early May, echoes of pandemic-era shutdowns. Meanwhile, service sectors showed some grit. Leisure and hospitality, plus financial activities, logged gains per ADP. But others, like trade, transportation, business services, and even education and health, saw losses. It's like a tug of war. Some sectors hold steady, others slip. Now, imagine the scene for workers. Pay growth is a bright spot. Those sticking with their jobs saw wages rise 4.5% year over year, while job switchers snagged a 7.0% boost according to ADP. But that's cold comfort if your job's on the line. The Institute for Supply Management added fuel to the fire, reporting on June 4, 2025, that U.S. services sector activity shrank in May for the first time since mid-2024. Why? Trump's tariffs are jacking up prices and sowing uncertainty, making companies hesitant to hire or invest. Let's rewind for context. Tariffs aren't new for Trump. Back in 2018, during his first term, he slapped 25% tariffs on steel and 10% on aluminum, aiming to revive U.S. production. Carnegie Endowment for International Peace reported on January 28, 2021, that while steel jobs ticked up slightly, the broader impact was rough. Job losses in sectors using those materials outweighed gains. Fast forward to 2025 and the stakes are higher. On March 4th, Trump hit Canada and Mexico with 25% tariffs on everything from groceries to electronics, per JP Morgan research on May 19, 2025. He doubled duties on Chinese goods to 20% in February, then pushed China tariffs to 145% by April, per Investopedia on April 18, 2025. Canada and Mexico got a brief reprieve under the USMCA until April 2, but the uncertainty is already rattling nerves. Here's where it gets dicey. Retaliation is in play. China slapped tariffs up to 15% on U.S. agricultural goods like corn and soybeans. Starting this week, CNBC reported on March 11, 2025. Canada hit back with $21 billion in tariffs on U.S. exports, orange juice, peanut butter, motorcycles, you name it. This tit-for-tat could hammer U.S. exporters, especially in agriculture and manufacturing. Investopedia noted in April that 931,031 American jobs tied to exports to China in 2022 are now at risk. If trade tensions escalate, hiring could freeze and layoffs could surge. The economic data paints a stormy picture. The Commerce Department said the U.S. trade deficit ballooned 34% to a record $131.4 billion in January 2025, the biggest jump since 2015, per Reuters on March 7, 2025. Imports soared 10% to $401.2 billion as businesses raced to stockpile before tariffs bit harder. Then GDP growth flipped negative, shrinking 0.3% in Q1 2025, down from 2.4% in Q4 2024, Al Jazeera reported on May 2, 2025. Consumer spending dipped in January for the first time in nearly 2 years, per CNN Business on March 6, 2025. It's like a chess game where every move risks checkmate, tariffs boost costs, consumers pull back, and companies rethink staffing. What about the human side? Picture a factory worker in Pennsylvania, where Mack Trucks just cut 250 to 350 jobs, blaming market uncertainty and tariffs, per Reason.com on April 18, 2025. Or a retail worker facing a shaky future as stores brace for higher prices, like ABC News warned on February 4, 2025. On the flip side, some U.S. steel and energy firms might hire, shielded by tariffs. But experts like Jason Miller from Michigan State University told ABC News the losses will likely dwarf the gains. Goldman Sachs economists estimated on April 15, 2025, that tariffs could create 100,000 manufacturing jobs but cost 500,000 elsewhere, a net loss of 400,000. The federal government's not immune either. Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, has axed over 280,000 federal and contractor jobs across 27 agencies since February, per Challenger, Gray & Christmas, and NPR on April 4, 2025. The Labor Department noted 9,000 government job losses in April alone, with 26,000 gone since January. This shakeup, paired with tariff chaos, has consumer confidence tanking, its biggest drop in nearly 4 years, The Guardian reported on March 7, 2025. So, what's the ripple effect? Economists are split. Some, like those at the Atlanta Federal Reserve, forecast GDP declining at a 2.8% annualized rate in Q1 2025, per Reuters on March 7, 2025. Others, like Harry Holzer from Brookings, told CNBC on April 8, 2025, that job losses could be in the millions if Trump doesn't reverse course. Retaliatory tariffs could push unemployment from 4.2% to 4.7% by year-end, costing 500,000 jobs, per Yale's Budget Lab. Long-term, the damage might linger, with 200,000 to 300,000 fewer jobs annually, experts say. Let's reflect on this. The threat of massive layoffs ties into a bigger story. How do we balance protecting U.S. jobs with the cost of trade wars? Tariffs might shield some industries, but they're rattling supply chains, hiking prices, and spooking businesses. Workers in manufacturing, retail, and trade face uncertainty, while service sectors cling to hope. It's a high-stakes gamble, and the outcome's unclear. What does this teach us about navigating global economics today? Can you imagine that moment when a policy shift changes your livelihood? I'm Kundan Yashputra, and this has been a deep dive into the potential massive layoffs looming over the USA. If you found this eye-opening, hit that like button, subscribe to NextGen Now, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Could tariffs cost jobs or save them? Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.